So now we would like to have an interactive session with you. So Tanya and I will start by asking you some questions, and hope to see what kind of answer you will get. And we hope that one or two of you can comment or explain your views and why you say that what you're doing. And then later on, you will have the opportunity to ask us questions about anything. So if you have some, you can start writing them up now. But just to start us off, we have two questions. So please raise your hand when we tell you to show your response on each of these questions. So the first one is, what do you really call yourself? What kind of label do you put on yourself when you are discussing with friends or sometimes explaining what you are doing? And we have put up here atheist, agnostic, humanist, skeptic, non-religious, or maybe something else. So let's try a show of hands. What do you usually call yourself? Who will call themselves atheists?
Okay. All right.
Quite a few.
Okay. All right. Thank
Okay.
you. We're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, that's all right.
Thank you. We're doing well.
Who would call?
Who likes agnostic?
Who would call agnostic?
Okay. Not so popular, but okay. That's
Not
good.
many, but a few.
That's fine.
Who would use the label humanist?
Okay.
Quite a few as well. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay, thank you. And skeptic? Yeah? Okay, good. And then non-religious?
Okay.
Yeah,
We just got everywhere.
absolutely. And what about something else? Do you say something else? Well, I'm not that really interested in that church things.
Jedi. Yeah. Okay. Anyone a Jedi?
Maybe.
All right. Now, who wants to give us an explanation for what you prefer? Anyone who calls themselves an atheist and would like to tell us why? Okay. Over there.
Hi everybody. Good morning. I think I may have made a huge mistake raising my hand back there, but I prefer to call myself an atheist because although based on what everybody has been saying since the beginning of the program, there is a negative connotation with the word atheist, right? But what I found is there are some people who kind of think it's cool for you to be an atheist. So I've had people say, hey, you're the first guy I know who is an atheist, and I think you're pretty cool, because you know, people know you in real life, and they know you're a good person. They know you do good things, and you have basically live a good life. And they think, when they find out you're an atheist, well, maybe this atheism thing isn't so bad after all, so.
I don't believe in God, but I don't actually understand how the world began. And since I can't find a rational explanation for how the world began, or at least one that I can understand, being a non-scientist myself, I have to say that therefore I can't actually call myself an atheist. But I mean, this is a very, very fine distinction, which I don't suppose interests anybody else but me.
I think it's perfectly okay to say we don't know how everything started. And look, we may actually, I just like to comment on that, but we may actually never know. And you know what? That's okay, because it's fine. Maybe humans don't even have the capacity to understand the origins of the universe. I think that's absolutely fine. I mean, it would be nice if we could work it out, and I hope we will. But if we don't, that's okay. So that's fine. Anyway, who likes to call themselves a humanist and wants to tell us why that title works for them?
Personally, I define atheism as a lack of belief. Now, if people ask me what I do believe, well, I say that I am a humanist, which means that I believe that we, as human beings, have the capacity to progress in our lives and attain these privileges without the need for a religious dogma or any unproved and too much assumed superstition.
Thanks a lot. And I'm quite sure that some of you raised your hands on several of these names or labels when we had the show of hands. And that's also quite okay. And I can say that I use all these labels in different contexts myself. Because I would say that my life stance is primarily to be a humanist. But if people ask me if I ask and I believe in a God, I always have to counter then and say, which God do you mean? Because if you say the Christian God that is described in the Bible, I would say definitely I'm an atheist. I don't really believe in that. But if your concept of God is something that started the universe long time ago but doesn't interfere with things now, well, that's just a name for something you don't know. So I'd say I'm agnostic in that context. So you can use all these labels and be proud of them. So let's go to the next question, which is perhaps a little more difficult, because some of you have problems.
We didn't do skeptic.
Yeah, I don't think we need to.
Okay.
Because some of you meet problems when you say that you are a non-believer or that you are an atheist. And we would really like to know what kind of problems do you get into, if at all. So, do you have that kind when you're discussing this with your colleagues at work, or in your family, or at school, or at your children's school? Or is it only at specific occasions like weddings and funerals? Or does it affect some political work? Or could it be that you are never affected by it? You never really encountered any problems with this? Let's try a show of hands for this. Who of you has experienced any problems with your atheist label at work?
Atheist, non-religious, or humanist? Okay.
Yeah.
Not many. Okay. Not many. That's actually good. I'm good.
Yeah, that's good. In your family then, we heard that there was some problems previously.
Okay.
Your family, your grandmothers, especially.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. At your school or at your children's school,
Okay.
regarding education? Not so many there either. Okay, good. And weddings and funerals?
Okay.
Okay. And in political work? Maybe not so many of you are engaged in political work, but anyway, just a few. And so finally then a show of hands for those who have never had any really problems with your label, whether you call yourself atheist or humanist or not. No problems.
Okay. Interesting.
Are you just a bit lazy? You don't want to raise your hands? But my initial reaction now was that there's not many of you have had serious problems with this. But we would like to hear from a few of you. What kind of problems have you had? If you have had problems at work, has that been with your employer or with your colleagues or other kinds of problems? So, you got one there? Please.
Yes, I would like to go. Although I'm very vocal that I am an atheist, at work, I try not to piss off everybody that I work with because I'm the only one who is a non-believer. And many times my employer has asked me to join them in different church and prayer meetings. Though I have always turned it down. They think that they could save me, or I don't know what their goal is, if they introduce Jesus into my life. Now, Jesus is a very excellent character if you are going to study his works according to the Bible. But there's really no supporting evidence against, to support that Jesus really existed. And I believe I have more real people that I can look up to and use as my role model instead of a fictional character. Now, in my family, in my immediate family, I don't have a problem with my non-belief. And that is something I am very grateful for, unlike many Filipinos here. My mom is also a non-believer. My dad didn't care as long as all he said is, as long as you're happy, live your life. That's it. And I experienced different problems in school before because I have been sent to different religious institutions. Here in the Philippines, there is hardly any secular school. Most schools, especially the prestigious ones, are run by Catholics, Catholic schools. And although most Catholic schools do not mix science with religion, in my experience, they still inculcate religious education in the curriculum. We have CL, which stands for Christian Living. Now, I always ace that class, of course, because I use my brains. If it's for the grade, I'll write Jesus in the test paper. No worries. At weddings and funerals of close family, I have encountered a problem with that too. Because here in the Philippines, we have this elaborate ritual of burial. It's like 9 days of novena for the soul, because majority are Catholic. And I always find it to be a burden on the family that has recently lost their loved one. Because what happens is, during this 9 days of novena, it is the family of the departed person who needs to shoulder the expenses. They need to feed the people who goes to the different homes to pay their final respects, so to speak. So instead of elevating the problem of the family of the recently departed, it is adding more problem, especially financial, because the family is forced to buy snacks for the people who would come. They are forced to open their doors 24 hours a day for the people who would come. They are forced to avail of very expensive funeral services for the people who would come. Embalming must be done because the dead body is displayed right in front of you. So they won't let it rot. Embalming is really needed, and it's a very expensive process. One time, my aunt recently died. I told my mother that I would not be attending the funerals as a way of protest because I find this custom rather silly and expensive, and I really don't need to do it because I don't believe in any souls. But sometimes we are forced to do these things because we live in a society that demands it from us. And since we have families and obligations also to consider, we go out of our way just to participate in these, I would say it out loud, silly rituals. They're all silly rituals. In political work, recently I have also joined a different group that is advocating for change in this country. And the sad thing is, I don't see any change happening if the people will not be open to change itself. And what change is it that I'm talking about? During election time, for a person to be heard or to be even considered vote, they must admit that they are God-fearing, that they are affiliated with a certain religion, that they are going to do projects in the name of God. Now, I find that kind of politics defeating. Although I am also I was a political science student back in college, I see no need for a God in any work.
Okay.
We must put our faith in humanity and not some imaginary being. And that's it.
We have one there first, and then you're second.
Okay, so the mic stand is small.
Yes,
So
please.
yeah, well, for me, being an atheist at work hasn't really caused problems for me. Well, because I work freelance, so so yeah, no problems at work. But in my family, well, in my opening remarks, in which I panicked, so excuse that. I told you that I got a good 2-hour scolding when I told my mother I was an atheist. Like, what was she worried about? Why did she have to scold me? Why did she have to do this? I'm not doing drugs. I'm not out there stabbing someone or holding up a store. I'm merely I watch TV, I read my notes, I do my homework, and like she's still so worried about me. I mean, the intention is there. Her intentions are well placed, but it's the belief sometimes that puts a wall between us, so we really can't see eye to eye. I mean, it divides it divides siblings. It divides mothers and their children. That's one thing. That's one big problem about atheism. I mean, to the point that people I know get disowned by their own families. Now, at school, yes, I do have a few problems at school as well. Being in a Catholic school and considering the part I play in Patas, I do have some problems sometimes with my professors. And, well, since my main problem is with theology, like, if you're studying in a Catholic school, no matter what program you take, you are required to study theology. You are required to pay that subject, 3 units each, and you have 4 theologies. So, for me, it's like I'm just wasting money. I can learn that from anyone. Why should I pay a school to study that? I'm wasting my money. That's one problem I have at school. Now at funerals, well, you know, superstitions this, superstitions that. Whenever a relative of ours gets buried, there's this some kind of watery substance in which they boil leaves in. And you're required to, your family members expect you to take that water and you smear it all on your forehead, on your nape. And if you don't, they all, well, expect a sermon, expect your ears to be ringing for a few hours, or expect a headache. I mean, do they really have to impose it on you for their fear of some supernatural mumbo jumbo happening? I don't really see the point of that. Now, in political work, well, I'm too young to go into politics.
That's all right. Thank
so,
you.
yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
all.
In my family, when I first came out, I had a problem with my mother. I was raised in a Catholic household, but we also had traditions from our Chinese ancestry, and so we practiced rituals. So when I came out as an atheist, and when I tried to question the traditions, the beliefs that my family practices, we would always argue, my mother and I, but I will always throw back at her verses from the Bible. From my experience, non-believers know more about the Bible than believers, and when you throw the holy book back at them, I find that they get uncomfortable. And so eventually my mother just stopped convincing me, and we live peacefully right now. So that's good. In my school, I was educated in Catholic schools as well since I was young, and yes, they have theology classes, and I've always failed that subject. So that's been my problem in school with regards to my non-belief.
Okay, thank you.
I almost didn't graduate because of that. And what else? I'm studying to be a law student, and so I'm anticipating that if I were to practice eventually, that that's when I'm gonna have a problem with political work. So there. Thank you.
We would like to remind everybody that being part of the Patas organization, one of the things that you need to do is to share this kind of experiences and try to identify what kind of problems do we really face, and then discuss some of them and try to see what can we do to address each of these problems, because that's the kind of stories that you need to provide to a wider audience that you need to address. And I can tell you from my home country in Norway, which is a very small country, we have about 5 million inhabitants, but we have in the Norwegian Humanist Association, we have 80,000 members. And we have been fighting for this for almost 60 years. And many of our people have been through exactly the same problems that you have mentioned here. And we still have quite a lot of these kind of problems in Norway, and we are still fighting for them. So you need to be patient. You need to work on this slowly but steadily in many, many years to come, but you will succeed. So for the final part of our presentation, we just want to ask, are there any questions that you would like to ask to us? You have the opportunity now. You can use a few minutes for that as well. There's a question here.
Isa po akong, ang tawag nila sa akin ay atheist, pero ganun pa man, ako po ay naniniwalang may Diyos. Ganito po yan, ano po. Ipapaliwanag ko kung bakit sa amin, sa Laguna, ay hindi raw tama yung aking paniniwala. Kasi naniniwala akong may Diyos. Ang paniniwala ko kasi sa Diyos ay hindi yung Diyos ng Biblia na dispalinghado at ugaling tao yung Diyos ng Biblia at ng Quran. Ang Diyos ko, sabi ko sa kanila, ay isang pangyayari. At pwedeng kasama ka doon, pwedeng dumadaloy siya sa iyong katawan, sa atin. At siya ay binubuo ng isang pangyayaring magmumula sa wala na nagkaroon. At siya ay binubuo ng tinatawag nating dark o negative energy at saka positive energy.
Thank you for the question. I'm sorry that we don't speak your language. So can someone help translate it to English for us?
Okay, okay. Ang tanong ko ay tungkol dito sa convention na ito.
I will translate in a bit.
Thank you.
Good.
Sige. Dito kasi sa ating pagkasama na to, wala naman akong tanong na ano, kundi lahat po ay tipong naaayon siya sa aking paniniwala. Bagamat nagtaka kayo sa akin kanina kasi ang salitang Diyos kasi ay hindi rin ako conforme doon. Ang ibig ko lang sabihin, para sumabay doon sa puntong tinatawag na hindi masyadong masakit sa tenga ng mga naniniwalang may Diyos, edi sinasabayan ko na lang na may Diyos. Di ba? Para bang sinasakyan ko sila ng, sinasabayan ko sila ng tinatawag na scientific belief. Ang question ko lang ay kung paanong nag-exist yung kanilang o yung paniniwalang ibig sabihin ay
I'm sure we'd be very happy to respond, but we'd need some translation first.
Yung
Yeah, we'll take the summary translation if we could.
Okay, ang tanong ko po ay kung gaano ba kalawak itong grupo ng humanist na ito na sa buong mundo, ano po.
For the translation, Felix actually just mentioned a short introduction about himself. He's from a province of Laguna, and in his province, they believe that atheism is wrong. Okay, so he actually believes that he doesn't believe in the Christian God. However, he believes that God is some sort of phenomenon that happens, or something, a kind of spirit that exists in the person's body. However, he could identify himself with atheists in general since he does not believe in a personal God. Now, his question with regards to humanism and in relation to this convention is, how big is the humanist or non-religious organization worldwide?
We think it's difficult to say exactly. We know that we are about 100 organizations that are members of the IHEU, and some of them we know exactly how many members are in each of those organizations. But for quite a few, they do not really have a membership because they have some kind of supportership, they have some kind of activists. In India, for example, almost none of the members can actually pay some kind of membership fee, so they just meet up for the meetings. So we don't really know, but we know that there are several 100,000 members in our organizations, where the Norwegian group is the biggest, but we have a lot of others as well. But as I mentioned in the book Good Without God, Greg Epstein said that we are 1 billion non-believers around the world, and I think that's a good number for us to use. Thank you.
I grew up in a strictly Catholic family. My question is, what does it take for men of high stature, highly educated individuals to get so deluded? But if I may mention, you might notice lately there's a huge organization down south in Davao, which claims to have a multi-billion global network. And I would see the personalities who are, I would say, deluded in just praising this person are highly educated, sometimes political figures. And that makes me wonder why and how they get so deluded right away with such a with just one person who claims that he is such and such. That's just my question.
No, that's fine. Thank you. For most people, it's simply what they're told when they were young. There's a theory in evolutionary biology that human babies are actually born with this tendency to defer to authority, and you can see why, in an historical sense, this would have been a good thing. We're taught to listen to our elders. We have evolved to listen to our elders. So don't eat those foods, don't play with the lions, don't fall off the cliff. Survival sort of stuff. And religion kind of hijacks that. Because if you're brought up, and the same people who give you food and give you shelter and give you comfort also tell you, oh, by the way, there's this God and you've got to do these things to get into heaven. Children at the young age don't have the ability to distinguish between fantasy and reality. So what tends to happen is that people follow the religion of their parents. That is the number one predictor of the type and degree of religion that you will have as a person. And so that's why you have Catholic countries and Muslim countries and Hindu countries and Christian countries and things like that, because people absorb what is around them, the figures of authority in their life. And religion is very good at protecting itself from criticism, like I mentioned in my talk about religion.
Yeah, is it conclusive to say that religion is viral?
Viral? I suppose it depends on what you mean by viral. I mean, not necessarily, because I think what it really comes down to is it follows a path of education, and that path of education is a good one. It's good that we learn from our parents. It's a structure that has served us well in an evolutionary sense. It's unfortunate that it gets hijacked by bad ideas as well as good ones.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I have we have gathered two last questions for both of you, and these are different. For Roar Johansen, how effective is your fight against the faith schools operating in Europe, since we are seeing so many faith schools cropping up in Europe lately? And for Ms. Tanya Smith, please tell us the story of how you started the humanist school in Uganda, and what advice can you give to us if we intend to put up such a school here in the Philippines? Thank you.
The question about faith schools is a bit difficult, because one of the United Nations human rights charters says that parents are allowed to bring up their children within the same faith or religion as themselves. And very often this is interpreted in a way that if a country has a secular school system, they actually have to allow by law that parents can establish their individual schools, faith schools, to bring up their children the way they like. So that's quite actually a question of human rights. The problem that we address is often about whether the state government should fund that kind of faith schools. And we say definitely no, they should not. And if they are doing so, they must at least have rigorous control mechanisms in place to ensure that the faith schools are also following the standard curriculum, so that they can have something in addition to the standard curriculum, but not replace the standard curriculum with only faith. But that is very difficult, and it's very different from country to country, and there are different solutions to this. And but we see that in some countries, especially the government is starting to try to reduce the cost of education. So the public school system is not as good as it was, and then some parents want to do private schools as part of improving the quality of the schools themselves. And if you combine that with faith schools, that is a really difficult proposition. But we can say that this is one of the top priorities for many of our member organizations around the world, and we hope that we will improve the situation in the future. Thank you.
So just on the humanist school, the school was started by a guy called Wombele Robert, and that was a year or so before AAI got involved, and it was a very small school at the start, and I think it's a real credit to him. So the school started, and what AAI did was get involved, I guess, to help take it to the next level. It was operating out of very small rented premises. I'm not sure how many kids it has, but it wasn't very many. And so what AAI did was it recruited some volunteer teaching assistants from its base. The unfortunate reality is that anyone who has a college education in a Western country tends to have a better level of education than people in Uganda. So there were some college students who decided to take 3 months, and they went over, and they really helped really establish the school properly. They moved it to new premises, they helped them set up the curriculum and helped them put a structure in place. And at the same time, AAI introduced what was a student sponsorship program. So there's a list of students on the website. You can say, I want to sponsor this child who's in the 3rd grade, and you pay an annual fee for their school fees. And that helps ensure that the child actually goes to that school. It takes the burden off the parents in a very poor country. And that project has recently been expanded to include sponsorship for teacher salaries. So people can now contribute directly to the teachers to make sure that the school's got the money to actually have decent teachers. So in terms of advice, the reality is these things need to be led by a local team. We as AAI, sort of an atheist imperialism thing, if we kind of flew into a country and said, well, this is how you should do things. There needs to be a local team that understands how things work in the local culture, and you have to start in small steps and do what is achievable. So you would get a group of teachers together, register a school, set up a basic curriculum, find some students, and come to a group like us or IHEU as well, and put together a budget proposal. I mean, we would be very happy to work with the school, arrange a student sponsorship program for another school to help get it funding to get off the ground. Ultimately, the school needs to be sustainable through student fees, through other kinds of revenue. And obviously it's got to work within the curriculum of its own country. But I guess to start off, what really requires is a group of dedicated local people who realise that this is important and want to put it together, and certainly come to us and other groups as well to try and get sponsorships and support to put the school into a sustainable position. It's kind of a big topic, so that was very brief, but whoever it was who asked the question, come and have a chat to me later if you like. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Both Tanya and I will be here all day, so feel free to come and talk to us over lunch or after the conference. Thank you very much.